Good morning. This is Berkshire Family History Presents. Our guest speaker today is Peter White from Dalton and Hinsdale. Peter is a historian who's done extensive research into people and places in the area of Dalton and Hinsdale. His family goes back to the 1700s. So he has a great deal of good information and history to share with us today. So I'd like to introduce Peter White. Peter, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, you mentioned a person, and I don't know what the relationship is when we spoke earlier, a man named Lemuel Pomeroy. Can you tell me who he is and how he relates to you and why you put him on the list?
One of the reasons was going through historic papers and actually online finding most of it, that he actually had an explosion in the center of town. In fact, near where the police station is now, he had a huge explosion, 700 pounds of gunpowder, actually, because he was a gunsmith and was making guns. So that drew my attention, and I just went into the rest of it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, you have some other information here. You have an image of Elweed, Beamister County.
No, Lemuel's picture is that picture.
That was Lemuel.
That was Lemuel Pomeroy. That was the first picture.
Okay.
So anyway, his family comes to the Massachusetts Bay Colony in the the lawyer from Beamister, England, who was a gunsmith also, came here with the government, with John Winthrop's 1630 migration of many ships. The Winthrop Fleet, it was called, and it was Lemuel's, one of Lemuel's grandfathers, Eltweed, which was his name, and he was a gunsmith, and he was from that town of Beamsmith is close to Dorchester, England, and when they arrived here, it became Dorchester, Massachusetts, just south of Boston. So therefore, there was a gunsmith that came with them, and that was Eltweed. And within about 3 years, he ended up, they had discovered the Connecticut River, and they started up the Connecticut River. And yeah, see, I thought so. It's that camera. I'm supposed to be watching.
Yeah.
So anyway, they...
when you say they discovered the Connecticut River, that's remarkable.
Well, it was 1600s.
Yeah.
They had discovered the Indians first.
Yes.
And kept them from going any further. But about 1633, they went up the Connecticut River and settled a fort in Windsor, Connecticut, which is now just above Hartford. And Eltweed and his son, Medad, I mean, these names I had never heard before this, but Medad Pomeroy and his father, Eltweed, went to Windsor as gunsmiths because they were needed to establish the fort and a village, and therefore they were heard about when they just settled up in Northampton. They moved up into Northampton, and you know, soon after, it was only about 5, 6 years. They ended up in Northampton as gunsmiths. And Eltweed, who was a senior at that point, became blind, and I don't have the info on how, but I can assume with the blacksmith trade and everything that they were doing, it was basically injury, maybe just a, I don't know. I shouldn't go any further with it because I don't know. But anyway, so then they went into the town of Northampton, wanted to secure Medad, the son. And so they bought and secured tools of the trade and a huge anvil that was part of an anvil that was there that was with a previous man, and they secured that to secure Medad as their gunsmith. And again, they, everything that they did was related around the gunsmith trade, mainly because it was definitely needed. In fact, Medad himself, the Pequot Indians stole a mare of his, and he went to the officials and said that he needs restitution. He needs to have some form of restitution for losing this mare. They kind of caused what the problems were. So anyway, that was in 38 or so, and about 1671 they gave him a little bit of money. So it took a while, but he got paid for that mare. Yeah. Then it comes to the next son, which was Ebenezer. He was taking over the trade from his dad, Medad. Medad. And with that, he ended up with all the tools, the anvil, the whole thing. And it got through several other generations. And to Lemuel Pomeroy, he was a gunsmith in Northampton before he came here. And he had a contract with the government to build 6,000 muskets, flintlock muskets. And the flintlock muskets are, as you see on the screen, it's a series of, you load the gun with a ball and some gunpowder, and you pack it down into the end of the gun, and then with having the load in, you sprinkle some gunpowder into what's called the pan. And if you look at the photos on the top is the flintlock gun, and the pan is right under it's right in the middle where that V is in the photograph on the top figure. You sprinkle some gunpowder in that. Then you cock back your gun, and you let it go. I mean, because you close, the frizzen is the part that closes over the top of that. Yeah. The flint is locked in that other top piece, and the top piece flips over, strikes the frizzen, scratches down sparks, lights the pan, which there's a touch hole that brings it into the chamber, lighting the other powder and throwing the ball. Yeah. In 1820, this was 1809 that he had an order for 6,000 guns, flintlocks, and he made them 2,000 a year. It was a 5-year contract, and when he finally, had them all done, they had them, they were using them. It was part of the government stock. In 1820, there became this cap that had a potassium chlorate chemical inside this brass cap that would ignite with pressure. Okay, and it was in a cap. So now instead of carrying this newspaper wad of gunpowder,
Yes.
a ball,
Yeah.
and ripping it over,
Yeah.
sprinkling, putting it in, it was a matter of just ripping the ball, sticking the load into the gun,
Yeah.
and putting a little cap on. But what they had to do is get the mechanisms changed.
Yes.
They sent a contract and all the guns back to Lemuel,
Oh.
and Lemuel ended up with another contract with the
Oh.
same guns to make a new portion. And if they could bring up that image again, the double gunshot,
Yeah.
that right there, you look down below, and that's the new mechanism. And if you also notice, they're both marked Lemuel Pomeroy.
Yes.
They were his guns. And the metal pieces had to be changed, even though the center of the hammer, we'll say now, was the flint scrape.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he did, and he got another $12.50 per gun to change out the
Well, that's
medical stuff.
considerable. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was all, very, very interesting. The things I, saw about him and read more and more, and he then started to get it. He was involved here in Pittsfield in every aspect of the town. And he was on every board. The railroad was coming through in 1639.
Yes.
He was the director of the Berkshire County Division and pretty much established where it was going to go where it turns and goes to West Stockbridge. The route, of course, through the mountain wasn't going to work anyway, but he had this section. And that's when the first railroad came from Worcester. Yeah, and that came from Worcester, and what they got up there now is where his mill is. He actually had a woolen mill, and if you see where it is, the railroad tracks go by there,
Yes. Yeah.
and it actually is down near where if you notice West Housatonic Street's on the bottom,
Yeah.
and those names, which you may not see very well, are his sons, T. Pomeroy, L. Pomeroy and Sons, and the star is over the mill, which buildings are still there, actually.
They are.
That he started, that was a woolen mill, and it's pretty much behind where the clock tower is. Where,
yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yes, sure.
It's out behind there.
Yeah.
So that, he just had so much going on.
Yeah, there they've floated
Yeah,
up a
there
little
it is.
bit. Yeah,
There it is.
Yeah.
And if you look,
Yeah. Those are names we still hear.
yeah,
Yes.
well, you see where Pomeroy Avenue was.
Yes. Yeah.
And that picture actually is, rushing them along, but anyway, that picture is where the explosion was. And as you can see, but that, all right, whatever. Park Square, you see the circle.
Yes.
That's
the
Park
circle.
Square.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of it, was the church and everything, North Street and all that.
Yeah.
So he had 700 pounds of gunpowder in a building there. And his shop was near there, where they were building it. Excuse me. And then he went on to get into he started to manage a forge down in Livingston, New York, because they were munitions forge. They made the munitions for the governments. And that forge actually forged a chain, a 2,000-foot chain that went across the Hudson River.
Oh.
Below West Point. Okay?
Yes.
For the Revolution.
Revolution, yes.
To capture,
yes.
catch.
Yes, I remember reading about that.
To catch and that was the forge. No, and you're going way ahead on the pictures. But anyway, he he was managing that, and then he found where he could more iron ore over in Copiague Falls.
Yes.
And he decided, he went over and he bought a large tract of land and started to actually build it up. And they built the forge there, and that's the forge that they were just had up on the screen.
I see.
And that, you know, was the Copiague Falls, now the Copiague Iron Works. And
yes.
And from that, he started storing more gunpowder now. And it was basically the fact that with what he was doing for work, he was also trying to develop other shot for the rifles, for the, you know, the guns he was making. He's experimenting with things, and he was storing a lot of gunpowder along with the cities, because instead of a lot of the folks that had their gunpowder, large amounts stored in their homes, it became a necessity to make sure that they would keep most of the gunpowder in this armory that would protect the rest of the town.
Yeah.
And they took what they needed at home instead of having it all at their homes.
Yes, yes.
And
yes.
from that point, there was vandalism, and they were getting into it. And there were a fair amount of actual armor in town where there were cannons and, you know, a lot of different pieces that they would use during war, and the vandals would get into them and start messing with them.
Oh dear.
And they took them out of here.
Yeah.
And then they started playing around with the gunpowder.
Yes.
And got in there and seemed to have lit a match.
And there it goes.
And they blew up.
Blew it up.
And the Dunham Mall, you know the Dunham Mall.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Yes,
that was a James Dunham. He was a carriage maker and blew his place to bits.
Yeah.
And there was another place on Fenn Street that all the windows and doors were blown out of it. All the houses that were in the vicinity had to replace windows.
Oh,
and that was, you know, Lemuel's project, and he offered the space for the citizens.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he got into the Copiague deal, and he and his sons. And if you ever get down there and see the Copiague Falls, they have an incredible collection of, like, for instance, there's a photo there of where the iron foundry is.
Yes, I see that.
Yep, and they've got a train that runs. Of course, it's probably out of season now. In fact, I know it is. And they've got a great museum of a lot of artifacts that they have found there. And a lot of it is made by the Pomeroys. And there's a lot of other things that have been, you know, just part of the whole Pomeroy legacy. And the anvil that was in Northampton, still is in Northampton, that famous, you know, Pomeroy anvil. A descendant of, now be a cousin to Lemuel, but a descendant of Eltweed. And this right here is the one that they put down in the Copiague Park.
Yes.
Okay, Tegonic State Park, and it's all about my dad Pomeroy. Accepted tool shaped like, okay, there's a whole story.
Yes.
And there's a descendant of my dad's, we'll say, who has this ongoing to towns where Pomeroys have established, putting these black marble anvils of the Pomeroy anvils. And there's, I think, 15 they've got so far. And it's ongoing, they're still doing it.
Wonderful.
But Lemuel was just an amazing businessman. Everything he died in 1849, and the sons continued with the Copiague Falls deal and the woolen mill. They had several, and they stayed in business for quite some time.
Good. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
and like I say, it was an honest, fun trip to take and track all of this information.
I'll bet it was.
And
yes,
continue
yes.
to get the dates and understand the fact that, where they came from in
What they
1630. What they was Dorchester, actually. They were about 50 miles. Beaminster was about 50 miles northwest of there. But as a group, I imagine their ship, because there were many ships, came and established Dorchester here. And that was interesting, because I knew the town and I knew they came to Dorchester, but then I went back and looked further and realized that Dorchester was just a short distance in England, and realized, okay, they set up their own establishment.
Yes.
And in terms of the iron trade, now I don't want to go too far into this, but I have to say it because this is where I came from.
Okay.
The Saugus Iron Works. There's an old iron works that they dug up in 1953, and they've opened it up. It's a national park. And my ancestor, Joseph Jenks, was the master blacksmith that they brought from England to establish this same John Winthrop, the governor then.
Yes.
Okay, in 1643. He came to help with the group was the Company of Undertakers, they called it, and they were undertaking a lot of settling up and fixing up and getting established over here. And Joseph was, and the workers were Scottish prisoners. That they had captured in England.
Oh dear.
And they had to come over and work the iron foundry. And they've literally rebuilt the whole thing, and it's all still running, and it's quite the operation.
Amazing.
And there was another point that I absolutely jumped over. When after Lemuel came here, there was actually Dunham, James Dunham, the carriage maker. He was a carriage maker.
Yes, I see that. Yes.
Well, we know the name Clapp here.
Yes.
Jason Clapp. He was from Northampton, and he was a carriage builder.
Oh.
Dunham was also from Northampton. He hired Clapp to come and do his carriages.
Oh.
Okay. A year later, Lemuel.
This Lemuel.
This Lemuel got him to come over and manage his carriage shop. Now, Lemuel was building carriages, he was building plows, he was building all the tools in the world. Next thing you know, Jason Clapp is working at Lemuel's, because Lemuel was on. I got 6,000 guns to build. I got a mill, so I'm sure. Hey, come here. I need help. And then Clapp goes on and starts his own business.
Yep.
And he is a carriage builder in town that was building for presidents. He was a favorite of the Tsar of Russia. Now, I can't pinpoint which Tsar, but it was one of the Nicholases. And because that's when he was doing most of his work.
Excellent.
And they preferred his his work.
Yeah, Peter, can we look at some of your other pictures? You've got some wonderful ones, and we don't want to get too far behind. So let's take a look at some of the others that you would like to show.
Well, there's an old locomotive. Right there.
Yeah.
That there was what drove through here when they first opened the railroad.
Ah.
That's called a crab.
The crab?
That was called a crab.
Okay.
And at that time, they weren't doing the work they're doing now on the railroad. It was mostly for passenger service and some goods to get to Albany.
Oh, yes.
Right, it was the Boston and Albany Railroad, but built by the Western Railroad Company. And I'm also associated with the Chester Railway Station up in Chester, who does extensive work on the whole railroad system.
Oh,
And
Peter.
the railroad system, and this picture here is actually the Kopek Falls.
Oh, Kopek
Forge.
Falls, yes,
Yep.
yes,
That's
yes.
they
yes.
built that to protect what was left.
Yeah.
In fact, they fixed up that archway
Yeah.
because it was all, run down, fallen down.
Yeah, I see you have a picture or an image of a museum.
Right, and that's the Kopek Falls
That's the Kopek
at
Falls?
the last number 12.
That was number 12.
And
oh,
that's
it?
some of the artifacts.
And is that in existence today?
Yes, it is.
And if we were to go to
Yes, it
Kopek
is.
Falls,
Yes,
we could
it
see
is.
this?
Yes.
So what are those items there?
Well, I can't tell you for sure.
But they
Of
all
course,
related.
they're all built there.
Oh, Peter, you
So much as I know. I mean, they
Yeah.
were digging up stuff. They've got
Yeah,
artifacts of the
yeah.
Pomeroy mill. The building in the center is actually housing the museum.
Peter, this
And
is
that's a lot
so
of stuff.
extensive. You've put so much time and energy into this, and it sounds like you're never going to quit.
I got another project I'm working on. Yeah. Yeah.
We never realize how much history is here in Berkshire County.
That's
And people like
unbelievable.
yourself, a historian,
Yeah.
opens that door for us to learn about our history
It's
and
just-
the people in places.
Yeah. I mean.
So I really appreciate, and I hope you'll come back because you have so much more information to offer us, and we want to hear more and more of your ongoing
yeah.
explorations.
Sure. Sure.
So I want to thank you again for being here. This has been a wonderful occasion to meet you and talk with you, and I have learned a great deal about local history
It
as
is.
well.
It's
And
very
it's-
interesting.
It's good to hear that. So thank you very much. It's been a good time talking with you. Peter White will continue to do his research and offer it to us in the future. And I'd like everyone to come back and view us the next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.